Hey everyone, Jeff Lee here from Able Cine. I'm joined today by Tim Duff, Technical Sales and Partner Development over at Light Panels. We got some really cool developments to talk about. Naturally, of course, we have the new Gemini 1x1 Hard, and he's got a bunch of other fun toys to talk about today, including the Apollo, some updates there as well. So Tim, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate
thanks for having me, Jeff. Yeah, really happy to be here.
Absolutely, it's great seeing you. Obviously this weekend we just had a great show, so it was fantastic to be able to see people.
Yeah, it was a great
again.
event. Good to get back in the mix again and, be able to talk gear with people face to face.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think we all kind of missed that a little bit. So, but thank you for bringing by all of these new toys. So naturally, of course, you have over by you the Gemini 1x1 Hard.
Yep.
So naturally, like the name suggests, I think a lot of folks are thinking it's a hard source. But I want you, if you don't mind, to walk through it a little bit and kind of describe how it's different and where it fits into the overall Gemini line, which has been a great success between the original 1x1 Gemini and, of course, the 2x1. So you can speak a little bit about the
Yeah,
Hard.
absolutely. So, yes, the 1x1, Hard can be a little misleading because it's also an excellent soft source, as you see here with the dome. And I can go through some of the different, diffusion options that we have and different light modifiers. But, with the Gemini 1x1 Hard, the idea is we already have, two great soft fixtures. We have the Gemini 2x1 Soft, which is a premier studio light, excellent for lighting talent, around camera, and then the 1x1 Soft version, which takes that but puts it, in a smaller form factor, giving that, standard 1x1. And what this does is this kind of does the job of a few different types of fixtures. So while it, is the same size as the Gemini 1x1 Soft, the output you're going to get is much different, and even if you diffuse this down to its softest point, it's going to give you a much different aesthetic than just that standard 1x1 soft panel. So with the 1x1 Soft, it really is kind of that easy, take it out of the box and you can just do really nice lighting setups, especially on a smaller scale. This is a little bit more of a kind of any tricky situation, I can find some way for this thing to really bail me out. And it's also really great for when you do need that output and you want to find some different levels to kind of go down without needing to get a lot of other modifiers besides what we have to offer. So in terms of what this light can do, I want to kind of take it back to its most basic form. So this is why it is the Gemini 1x1 Hard. You have a 43-degree beam angle that comes out of this. So I'm just going to go to something a little more white light and just kind of show a little bit of just what this thing can kind of do. So you're going to have a very similar beam angle to the Astra 6X. And what we do differently compared to the 1x1 Soft is you'll see we have these lenses that are on the front of the fixture. So what we do that's really unique in how we lens our fixtures, other hard panels out there, what they'll do is they'll take a cluster of their LEDs and put one lens over it, which can give you some nice beam angles, but you aren't nearly as efficient. So we individually lens each of our emitters in the two white light emitters. So again, this is an RGB WW fixture. So you get that really nice full spectrum white light across your full range. And this goes from 2700 all the way up to 10,000 Kelvin in white light mode. And we utilize some of the RGB emitters to get to some of those higher, cooler color temperatures. But we have a specifically designed lens for each of those 5 types of emitters, because we also have the red, green, and the blue. So that gives incredible efficiency and output. So with just 200 watts of power with this light, we're able to throw about 3,000 lux of light from 10 feet away when you're in tungsten or daylight. So that gives you that same kind of functionality that you would get out of an Astra, but now you're getting full RGBW control, which not only does that give you excellent saturated colors, but also allows you to adjust your plus and minus green, get to that cooler or warmer color temperature, and utilize the full effects engine that the Gemini line has. And you still get the same consistent onboard control, so we're utilizing everything that we already done with the rest of the Gemini line. So you have these presets to quickly get to different color temperatures. You have the ability to, regardless of what color effect or white light mode that you're in, gel mode, where you can go to a specific setting, pick a gel you like you would on your old school AM/FM radios, just
Just dial it in.
Just dial it in, hold the button down, and then now you're saved it. So I can quickly go back and forth between up to 6 different settings. And all those great ergonomics of really simple and intuitive onboard control. You also get to take advantage of the fact that this uses all the same accessories that the 1x1 Soft has. So we've made it so things are as interchangeable as possible. So as you can see, this one's being powered by our single battery bracket. We have a Anton Bauer XT Dionic 150. This particular battery will give you about 45 minutes at full blast. And if you go up to the 240, you can get like an hour and 15 minutes out of it essentially. So really great to grab and go. And again, the lightweightness of it just makes it very easy to use. Now, again, going back to what's special and unique about this light, dim it down a little bit. So like we said, you can kind of start with just, nothing on it. You get that hard beam angle, you can blast it through a window, bounce it off a ceiling or a bounce card, or put it through a frame to soften it up. But it also comes with a ultralight flat diffusion. So when you add this on, this will soften it up a bit. As you can see, you can still kind of see the LEDs. I'm just gonna go to tungsten here. And you're still gonna have a bit of a big fall off. You don't have the 43-degree beam angle. You're getting more in kind of a 60+ degree. And what a lot of people have compared this particular configuration to is like taking a Fresnel and putting opal right on the barn doors. So you're not going to get those hard edges, but you're going to get that sharp fall off, but still have a nice, even, softer look. So that's another job that this light is able to do. And then you can take it a step further, and so here we go. You have your 60-degree hard egg crate that you can pop in, and again, just give you that great look that you get from using honeycombs. And we can also use the standard 1x1 snap bag from DOP Choice, the direct fit snap grid, the snap grid for the snap bag. So again, all of those great accessories that you're used to using with the Gemini 1x1 Soft. And then when you put the dome on it, it really softens it up, and you can still keep the flat diffusion on it to kind of double diffuse the light. And you're getting something that's a little bit closer to, almost like a chimera, because you have that depth of the light just really coming out. So it's great for overhead lighting, especially if you're in, low ceiling area, and just a great soft source. And again, you're gonna get a different aesthetic out of this than you would just a standard 1x1 soft panel. So all of these lights are meant to complement each other. And as you'll see when we especially talk about Apollo a little later on, all work within the same control ecosystem so that it's really seamless in order for you to get your lighting exactly how you want it to look.
Right. So in many ways, this is a little bit more tunable in that a DP, a gaffer, can work through and say, okay, I want to shape the light a little bit without necessarily putting as many modifiers in front with the kind of the built-in modification tools that you have.
Yeah, exactly. So again, the 1x1 Soft is just take it out of the box, put it up, and you don't have to do much. This gives you more of that creative flexibility, and especially if you're a bit more advanced in your lighting, knowledge and capability, you have a lot of tools to work with to create a bunch of different aesthetics with just one fixture.
So it's important to remember that's not in any ways replacing any of the other fixtures. It's just an additional tool to add to the tool belt of a DOP or a gaffer.
Exactly.
And thank you so much, because obviously things like the menus, the ergonomics are really important that they stay the same. And even rigging is super important, because then if you have all the same accessories, you can just transfer from one to the other.
Absolutely.
And then naturally, I think that brings us to, speaking of rigging options, to something like this, where you have the quad configuration, which of course was previously shown with the soft versions of the Geminis, but now you've put the hard version of the light inside of it instead, and it changes the lighting characteristics completely when you're talking about something like this.
Yeah, absolutely. So this really is our big gun, heavy duty light now, because you're talking about output that would be 5 times the same configuration on the source. Now, it's going to blast because, again, it's that tighter beam angle. But when you're especially doing something like a night exterior and you need a big light, but you don't want a big light, you need a big source, this is an excellent solution, because you're running this whole thing. It's about 800 watts of power. You can run it off of these dual BRAC 26-volt battery mounts that we have from Anton Bauer. So, and the 26 volts are great because you're gonna, have a better, more controlled discharge, so that you're not, just killing your battery, because these lights suck up a lot of juice. So 14 volts can, get through their power cycles more quickly, whereas this will be regulated and you're going to get more battery life out of them, and you get a lot more runtime out of it. So you can go full blast with this for up to 3 hours, and that's going to give you, when you're at 100% on this light and white light, you're at 12,000 lux. So I mean, that's a lot of juice for a little 55-pound fixture.
Right, and that's important too, because during setup, it was basically you just put this on the stand yourself. Like, there's no need for a multi-person crew, for some of those larger physical fixtures where you require, a big team.
Yep, one person, and again, here you go. You see, I mean, this thing, I'll probably blow it out if I'm not even close to 50% here, but it'll fills up a space, really nicely.
Right. And then what you were doing just there, of course, was from one knob, because all of these are linked together, which is important. So you're not fiddling with 4 different sets of switches trying to get everything to match.
Yeah, so we do, even though these are 4 individual different Gemini 1x1 units, what we're doing here is when you buy a quad array, you will get the 4 individual units, you'll get the yoke, comes with the, so in order to kind of assemble it, it's really easy. On this yoke, you would just take a hex screw, unscrew it a little bit, it's spring loaded, pop it out, and then it just slides off the rails. And then you put 4 of these together, you use these thumb screws to kind of connect them all, and then take this and slide it on the railing, and you have the same exact hex screw that you use for the single. So it takes only a matter of a couple minutes to set it up. And once you're set up, we also, as part of the array package, you get the extension cables to go either to your power supply or the batteries, which can mount right on the bottom of the yoke. And then you get the Ethernet cables to go DMX so that you can daisy chain this as one unit. So if you're using onboard control and you want this to just function as one single unit, it's very easy. You just take one of your fixtures that you choose, that's kind of at the front of the chain, and you go to in-out select, you set it to master replica mode, set it as the master out, and then you would one time have to set the rest to replica, and then they automatically will all be controlled just from whichever one of the onboard menus you choose. And then you have the ability to take wireless DMX or hardwired DMX in, and then address these all differently, so then you can have individual control. And now you have something that has 4 quadrants. So again, for a fax or if you want to do something in the shot, it's great because you have that ability to kind of not only control it as one unit, but split it up into the 4 different zones.
Right, different assignables, whether it's process trailer or just using it kind of in a pixel mode in many ways. Yeah, that's really smart. And of course, the output is something that we have to talk about as well, because you mentioned kind of in rough numbers, that's about 5 times brighter than the this 1x1 soft equivalents. But can you speak a little bit in actual numbers as to when you have it kind of naked like this, and then compare it to when you put the different diffusion?
Yeah, so you'll get 12,000 lux, as I said, when it's just naked without any diffusion. Then when you put the flat panels on this, you're going to lose some output, but also get a wider spread. So you're going to go down about a stop, but you're still a stop higher than a lot of kind of bigger lights that are in this class. And then if you were to put the 4 domes on this fixture, you would have something that's equivalent to larger LED fixtures that are out there. And again, the weight and the price point and the power consumption really gives it high value compared to other big bulky things that you sometimes have to get a few guys to lug around.
Yeah, exactly. Set. And of course, battery powered, which again is something for field work, is great that you can.
Yeah, so I mean, they love this for night exteriors out in the city when you're just going all over city blocks. There's a TV show Younger that had some of these set up, and they really took full advantage of it. And you can go up real high, have it all on battery for 3 hours. If you have the Apollo, you have wireless control, and you can just fill out that kind of area of the city block that you need to give a nice ambient light to it.
Right, yeah, that's great. And then as you're talking about Apollo, of course, we do want to talk about that as well, which is kind of the built-in control. Of course, each unit has its own Apollo receiver or controller, and then naturally when you put it together like this in the master and repeat mode, you can either treat it as one big panel or, like you mentioned earlier, set them as individual panels to be addressed separately. So why don't we take a look a little bit at some of the Apollo updates and some of the fixtures that you bring from your Lighticians experience into sort of the light panels family, and talk about, because wireless DMX in general is a huge, I think a lot of DPs, that they've always known about it, of course, DMX control, but they don't always have a board operator. But nowadays, especially with smaller crews, a little bit leaner and meaner, the fact that someone could have this up 50 feet in the air in a Condor and potentially do it themselves from their iDevice.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really helpful. And yeah, I mean, I think just generally with how advanced all of these LED fixtures are. You know, not just the Gemini, but anything, especially if it's going to be RGBW. It's, you know, these lights are, you know, small computers, and to just have manual control, and if you have once you get beyond a couple lights, it becomes unwieldy. And like you mentioned, you know, board operators are not always accessible. So having a system like the Apollo that you can run on an iPad is a great in-between of that simple, I can do everything from the light itself, to, you know, not going to that full level, you know, expensive and very, you know, cumbersome to set up a console, as much as obviously those do great things when you're on a big studio show. But this is
very
a
specialized.
nice solution, yeah.
Yeah, great. So let's take a look at the Apollo fixture next. Okay, so naturally when we have it in quad mode especially, we have to talk about the output, you know, because we're talking about a lot of output. And I knew you mentioned a little earlier some of those numbers, but why don't we just do a practical example, I think, for
let's see
folks
what it's
watching.
got.
So I know it's a little hard to translate on video at times, but we could just mention what we're using for camera settings. So the camera that's shooting this way right there is set at 180 degree shutter angle at f2.8 at ISO, I think 800, ISO 800. So, and you have this at what, like 10%, 50%?
This is currently at 1%.
Oh, 1%, okay. So why don't we go this way, and as you kind of do kind of a test by chance.
Yeah, and this is at 5600 Kelvin at currently 1%.
Okay. Great. Obviously, we have a lot of ambient light in this room from other things, but we also have a light meter too. So just for by way of comparison, for exposure's sake, you know, you can see that this is a ton of light.
Yeah, it's 50, and there we are, 100%.
Yeah, that's great. And then just here, I'll do a reading here. So we are at, on this meter, 200 ISO, 24 frames a second. I'm reading f11 with the dome on, so incident mode. And if you bring it down, I guess, to the 1% that we had earlier, just again to give people that a sense of scale based on the lighting.
There we go.
F2.
Yeah, and I mean that's another great thing about all the Geminis is you can really dial down on that low end. I mean, you can go down to 0.1%, and you know, granted, you know, for a source this big, you may not be using it that much, but it's great for the 2x1s and the 1x1s to be able to dial down and still get a nice little bit of light out.
Right. I think that's important too, because you know we do need to dim these lights too, and flicker, and that stuff is always an issue with LEDs in general. But obviously, Light Panels has figured that out a long time ago.
Yeah, we're very proud of what we can do, especially on fast shutter speeds, and keep it flicker free at low percentages. So, actually, when we did our launch video, Joe, the director and DP, barely had to change, you know, anything when he went to the standard frame rates, and then there was a slow motion kind of like escape scene, and it was amazing how seamlessly, you know, using the same lights, he was able to change it without having to, you know, relight everything, as you often, you know, would need to bring in other fixtures in order to work with something like the Phantom that he had. So.
Great, yeah, that's a great, I think, kind of practical example. Again, for folks that aren't able to be in the room with us, to see how overwhelmingly bright this is in a fixture that's, you know, really only 4x4, you know, give or take. Great, so why don't we take a look at some of the Apollo developments as well. We'd love to get into that a little bit deeper with you.
Yeah, absolutely, let's do it.
All right, let's take a look. Okay, and we're back. So yeah, thank you for walking us through some of the features on the fixture itself, but we did spend some time during our break to set up the Apollo, and so why don't you walk us through kind of what the bridge and kind of how everything is interconnected between that and iPad, et cetera.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, the Apollo ecosystem, you know, in addition to the Light Panels fixtures, it's really comprised of two, you know, to three main components. You have the Apollo bridge, which is really the backbone, the hub of the whole thing. And then you have wireless DMX modules for the Geminis. We also have them for the Astra as well. That would allow the lights to connect to the Apollo bridge, and then your control system, which in our case is the Lighticians Apollo Control app. Now, this is also an open system, so you can actually use third-party elements within it or integrate parts of this system into your own setup. So anything that's Lumen Radio compatible is going to be compatible with our system. If you want to use our app and use different hardware to connect to your lights, you can do that as well, as long as it understands streaming ACN. That's kind of our main, you know, Wi-Fi and IP network system. And if you want to use a different app or a console or other software, lighting control software, again, as long as it understands ACN, then you can use that with our Apollo bridge. So we want to give that versatility to the system, but on its own, it's a very complete ecosystem using just our products. So with the Apollo bridge, it's very unique in that it's dual band Wi-Fi. So it's the only bridge on the market that has that capability right now. And what that does is we have a very unique frequency hopping algorithm. These productions that we're on between all the wireless HD video, all the wireless audio, everyone's cell phones, especially 2.4 bandwidth can really get eaten up quick, and you have a lot of radio interference. So our frequency hopping algorithm does take advantage of using both Wi-Fi bands simultaneously, so that when you're connected to your tablet or your laptop or your console wirelessly, you get excellent range, excellent latency so that you're not getting a delay, and reliability so that you'll stay connected to your network. And then what it does is it takes that signal and then translates it to standard DMX512 and outputs it with this antenna via Lumen Radio to your fixtures. But you can also use this in a hardwired configuration as well. So again, there's a lot of versatility in what the Apollo Bridge gives you. So I'll kind of just turn it around real quick so you can kind of see on the back. You have a 5-pin XLR that can be used as an in or an out. Usually it's meant to be an output so that you can, in a studio situation, what a lot of people like to do is everything that's rigged up in the grid will be hardwired to the bridge, and then lights that are on the floor that move around are going to be connected via the Lumen Radio wirelessly. So you get that best of both worlds. And even with our fixture here, with the quad, you have one wireless receiver in one fixture, and then you daisy chain out of that. So you can have wired lights connected to a wireless light. So again, giving you more flexibility in how you set up your network. And this is really the only hardware side Lumen Radio receivers that you need for this to work. But you can scale it up. So we have a local area network Ethernet port and a wide area network Ethernet port. So with the wide area network, you guys have done some really interesting things, taking advantage of that and being able to control lights remotely in another part of the country. And with the local area network, you can build off of the network that you have established, whether you're running it back to a console. We had TV shows that they'll deploy 4 or 5 different Apollos throughout a stage as entry points to different sets, and then mixed with fiber optic networks, runs everything back to the console. But if the programmer wants to use something like ETC Nomad to walk around the set, the wireless system that's set up that is being boosted by each individual Apollo, no matter where that person is, that person can just be connected to the network and be able to adjust from set and then go back to the stage. So you get a lot of flexibility as you scale this up. But on its own, and in our particular case, especially on location, you plug in the bridge, you configure your Geminis to Apollo mode, which is very easy to do. You just go to Apollo mode right in the front of the menu. You would select, in this case, we're in 8-bit, so you go to Apollo 8-bit, and then you just set your DMX address and it's ready to go. And then in order to link the radio to the Apollo bridge, you just press the link button. It'll take about 10-15 seconds to find any devices that are connected to. Now what's great is and that's how it kind of grabbed it, the linking's over. And once you initially make that kind of handshake between the fixtures and the Apollo bridge, you don't ever have to do it again unless you're using different receivers. So anytime I turn this bridge back on and that receiver on, it's going to find this bridge and they're going to connect automatically. So great for when your kit is always traveling with you. You do that configuration one time and then you're ready to go. So as I said, you can use other forms of control along with our Apollo bridge, but we are big fans of our Lighticians Apollo Control app. And what you get out of this app and what the kind of mindset was consoles are great for what consoles need to do. And when you have a programmer and you need to do very elaborate setups with a lot of cues and chase sequences and all those things, that's still your best method of lighting control. And then there's also excellent iPad and even desktop applications that take that same workflow and make it a little bit more mobile and for you to use on your tablet. Now, not everyone kind of has that technical expertise and the ability to learn console programming, even if you're doing it on an iPad. So we wanted our application to really feel like an app, like take advantage of what you get out of an app workflow and UI, but build it for professional use. So that's really what we went for, to make it a bit more accessible to people who don't have access to those type of control methods. So just to kind of walk through a quick demo of how you can use this. First thing you do when you open the app up, you're going to have your list of projects. So these are a few different projects or scenes, setups that you have. So I'm going to go into the Able Cine setup that we have. and that's going to give me an overview of my fixtures and what they're currently set at. So I get a bird's eye view of the names of each light. You can assign icons to them when you patch them the first time to better differentiate. It'll tell me what percentage intensity it's at, the color temperature, and also preview, if it's using saturated color, what that color is. So if I want to control a light, I would tap on it, or I can do multiple lights by just tapping on them and those circles fill in. And then I would tap my yellow slider icon, and now I have my main control interface. So this is kind of what we use as the main way to control. So you're going to get your CCT control, you're going to get your plus minus green, and your hue and saturation all on this screen. So if I kind of go up and now I'm jogging these into being one light from individual quadrants, and I can just go around my color wheel, pick what saturated color I want. If I do this inner circle and scroll down, now I'm desaturating, and now I can kind of adjust my color temperature here, or my plus and minus green. And with any of these values, you can just tap on the number, and if I want 4,500 Kelvin, I enter it into the keyboard, and the lights will jump to that value, and maybe I want 50% saturation, and there you go. So you have the ability to enter in the values as well as just kind of tweaking it with the sliders. Now, in addition to your HSI and CCT control here, we have what we call our swatch mode. So this is our kind of gel mode. So we do have an extensive list of legacy gels that are very well known within the industry. And if I want to set this light to one of them, let's say I want to do Cabana Blue here, I just tap on it, and now the light is set to Cabana Blue. And what's really unique and special about what we're able to do here is that will bring you to what that light represents on the color wheel, or that swatch represents on the color wheel. So now I can be in Cabana Blue and say, you know what, I love this gel for what I'm doing now, but I need it to be a little bit less saturated in this instance. So I'm going to bring the saturation down to like 80%. Make sure I have the color temperature I want. And then I can save this, and we'll call this my DSAT Cabana. And when I go back to my swatches, and if I go to my custom and scroll down, it'll be the bottom one that I just made. There it is. And I can easily select that at any time. Or if I fill in the star by tapping that, and I go back to my color wheel, now it's part of this kind of swatch book that you have at the bottom. So you can build your own color palette from the swatches and then have them accessible on your main control screen. So very quick and easy for me to build my color palette and then jump between different colors or gels or swatches that I want to use. And then another great thing, so on top of just having that swatch mode, HSI mode, and color temperature mode, when you go into manual control, now you have the ability to mix in RGB, because this is a light that's in RGBW mode, even though we've been treating it like it's in HSI CCT. And here I can adjust my colors, mix them that way, and here's like a deep green. And again, like with swatches, whatever I do in that mode gets reflected back on the color wheel. So you have this interactivity between RGBW, HSI, CCT, and your swatches or gels, as you will. And in addition to having this ability to kind of quickly tap lights and control them, we can take this grouping control, and go a step further with it, because you don't always want to have to individually highlight and grab the lights to control them together. So instead of going into my slider icon, once I've selected my 4 lights in the quad, I can go to Add Collection, and I already have one made, but I can add them to this. In this case, because they're already there, might duplicate them. So now, once I grab them all, I can go to Add Collection, and I can create a new collection. I'll call this All Lights, and save it. And now I have a folder, and I tap that, those 4 lights are all going to get added in. And if I hit this arrow, this drawer on the right, I have a few different groups or collections, as we call them. And if I tap the all lights, I can see the lights that are in there. And anytime I just hit that slider icon on the right, now I'm grabbing all of these lights and controlling them as one group. And now they're all this nice blue. I save this, and let's say, okay, I want these lights to all be this color, but that one quadrant in there, I need it to be a bit brighter because maybe it's closer to talent, and then I can just boost that up. So very quick and easy to go from individual control to group control within this. Then what you can do is you can exit, and I have my Able Cine project. If I hit those three dots, I have the ability to share this, first of all, so I can airdrop it, email it, text it, WhatsApp, whatever I need to do to someone else on my crew. And all they have to do is open that file in the Lighticians app, and then if they connect to the bridge, all the lights will jump to that setting. That also allows you to actually save this either in your email or store it on your iPad. So if you're doing reshoots months later, you can kind of archive these different setups and go back to them. I can also, kind of like I would with a Microsoft document template, I can duplicate this. So we'll call this Able Cine 2. Kind of like you would with a Word doc template, you can take a project, duplicate it. We'll just add a 2 to this one. And now when I go into this second project that I've created, all the lights are going to be set as they were in the previous one. So now, okay, this scene was for daytime. Now I want these lights to all be, tungsten. It's nighttime scene now in the same location, and maybe this accent light, instead of it being purple, is going to be turquoise. And now I've completely relit my scene without needing to set a new project up. And then if I exit this, and let's say the next day we're going to come back and go to the original scene, once I go into it, all the lights just go back to that setting. So you can really kind of quickly and easily just add a whole number of looks to your project and be able to replicate that sometime in the future.
Yeah, and that's obviously key to that, is I think not being frustrated in the heat of the moment, especially on set, and saying, I want to tweak, like you said. That was a great example of saying, we have a whole unit, but maybe this one, because I'm standing closest to it, and I need a little help as far as color or saturation or whatever.
Yeah, so really useful when you have a bunch of lights up in a grid, because you can do rows and different sections, and then just pop that one light that you need to adjust after. And another great thing is you can basically mix bicolor and RGB fixtures, and as I mentioned, this is an open system, so we do work with other brand of fixtures. So if you want a light that's in HSI mode and our lights in RGBW mode, and then you have bicolor Astros, and you want to, let's say, get them to the same color temperature, if you select them all, even a bicolor fixture, you'll at least be able to set them all to the same color temperature together, and then you can go into the two different RGBW lights, even if one is in HSI and one's in RGBW, and at least get them to the same color parameter. Because different manufacturers kind of drive their LEDs differently, you will have to probably tweak to get it exact, but you can rough it in and at least get an overall similar color scheme within your setup.
Right. So if I'm understanding you correctly, you're saying you can actually mix, like you said, RGBW, HSI, CCT mode fixtures. Let's say the Astros are using to light us currently, and of course these Geminis, and be able to select them as a group or save them as a group and say like sort of master.
Yep.
And then you bring up intensity all at once, you bring up color temperature at the very least. Obviously the CCT units are limited in that regard, but you can at least dial in the mixture and then just roughen and then go in and tune individually, even though they're all different modes.
Exactly, and then you could even save that, if you have that purple for the Gemini and then you have to tweak it for another fixture, you can save that for that color for that fixture and then have that palette available once you kind of figure it out. So you get a lot of flexibility, and then you speed up that process once you've done it maybe the first time of getting everything to match. And again, kind of going further into that, I didn't show the manual mode screen yet, so in addition to the swatches, in manual mode, now I'm actually mixing in RGB. So as you can see on the screen, now I can just take those three primary colors, and like here's my deep green, and again, going back to the color wheel, it represents whatever. So you get, at the same time, in the same mode, across different types of fixtures, RGB mode, HSI mode, CCT mode, gel mode, all together, all at the same time, without having to adjust anything.
Right, and I think that's the beauty of what you're doing with this too. Just speaking back to the DMX and console operation, is that there's many channels depending on how many parameters you're controlling, and that takes a lot of the guesswork out of it. Like you just put it in the menu on that unit, just Apollo mode.
Yep, Apollo mode, and link it, and you're good to go.
As opposed to saying, okay, I know channel 1 does saturation, or channel 2 does, so on and so forth. That becomes cumbersome, because then you're looking at manuals and saying, like, what does each channel address?
Yeah, and profiles can get tricky because everyone, does their DMX mapping differently, and there's certain kind of pitfalls that occur where, for instance, a lot of times with green magenta on a lot of DMX maps, like 0 actually makes it neutral on the slider, and that could be an issue if you try to go all the way minus green and then all of a sudden it's neutral because the profile isn't correct in your other app or console. All of our smart profiles, we test them. We make sure that they, everything is kind of tagged by the metadata of what you're trying to have. So that's why even with generic, like if you had something like LED tape and you just had red, green, and blue on a 3-channel dimmer, if you used our generic RGB profile, then you could mix it as if it was HSI. Same thing with bicolor tape. You have a 2700 Kelvin and a 5600 Kelvin. You use the right profile, we'll be able to tell you what 4000 Kelvin is between two completely separately run channels.
Right, that's really impressive. So I love the innovation there, and the fact that, again, just looking at this, it's extremely user-friendly, but has all the powerful advanced tools that one could use, and just simply by tapping the manual tab, which is super smart. So yeah, I really appreciate it. This is a great kind of walkthrough of what is happening with Apollo, obviously between the bridge and obviously the receivers, and just the fact that it just clicks in very nicely and cleanly to the top of our lights here. And like you mentioned, it's also available with the Asteroid Replace the Module.
Yep,
with
exactly.
the Apollo version of it. Great. So Tim, thank you so much for showing us not just the 1x1 hard and of course the quad array, but also walking through Apollo with us today.
Yeah, it was my pleasure.
Yeah,
Thanks
this is
for having
fantastic and great learning for me as well, because there's a lot of stuff that I didn't know about the Apollo app. So I really appreciate you making the way in. And yeah, thank you for joining us again.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
absolutely, anytime.
All right, well, that's it, I think, for now for our kind of a look at the 1x1 Gemini Hard, as well as Apollo, and of course, all of the accessories and modifiers that Tim brought with him. That's it for now. Thank you for joining us. We'll catch you on the next one.